Hey folks, David Stewart here. Welcome back to the Livewrite, where I write a book live. People ask me to do this content for like years, and I was like, no one's gonna watch this. Every week there's a couple people who watch it. Oh, it's been busy. We are going to hop into it as much as we can. If you're wanting a link, I'm going to do all the links at the beginning so I don't forget them. You can get copies of all this stuff, so you can read the book as it's being written by joining the Patreon. You can also do it on Substack, okay? So a lot of people are doing it on Substack. This Substack article that comes out every week. This week's, it is called The Good Boomers. The Good Boomers, which is just, you know, I made a couple videos on the baby boomer generation and, you know, the problems with the baby boomers. So that one is like, are there good things about the baby boomers? The answer is yes, there are actually really good things. The extremes that produced, especially the American baby boomers, negative things that happened also produced some positive things along with the negative, and that's the big thesis of that particular article. So you can check that out. I think a lot of the really big innovators from the second half of the 20th century, their baby boomers are very overrepresented, especially in the artistic fields. There's a lot of rebellion within constraints that produced a lot of great music. Great movies, you know, the summer blockbuster is really a baby boomer phenomenon. So I'll talk about that a little bit in there. And then, of course, yeah, if you like the music, I'll go ahead and give you a link to it. Hang out on the music channel. All right, let's hop into this and see what we can see. Do what we can do here. Get this adjusted just a bit here. That's probably good. Good. Hope you guys are having a good Saturday. You're on chapter 14. We're gonna hopefully pass the 50,000 word mark today, so that'll be good. It's exciting. Very exciting. Sorry. Hardwick Bentha says, a couple of weeks ago I was in a waiting room with some baby boomers. I talked quite a bit with one of them and a little with another one. The second one talked about how when he was a teenager it was cheap to buy a car, and now a Ford pickup truck costs $100,000. He said he feels sorry for young people today. He also said that when he was young, you could go out on a date and buy hamburgers at a diner, then movie tickets, popcorn, and drinks all for a few dollars, and now that isn't possible. The other one said I reminded him of Mr. Rogers and got worried that I might not understand it. He meant it as a compliment and explained that he always loved Mr. Rogers. Okay. So it's not just like a few dollars that inflation kills. It's like, what can you get for like 1 hour of work? And it's like almost no comparison. Even if you're getting paid $15 an hour, you know, you couldn't buy a meal. You'd have to work. Like, how many hours would you have to work to take someone out on a date now? For like $15 an hour. It'd be like you have to work 6 hours to take someone out on a date. when it wasn't like that before. It's like 2 hours, you know. So it's like 3 times more expensive. And the other thing you have to think about with a $100,000 truck is, are you getting more truck? In some ways you are. However, there's not a lot of options for getting less truck. Can I get a $50,000 truck? It's harder, right? You know, that's the problem. And does that $100,000 truck do more than the $20,000 truck did 20 years ago? And the answer is no. It does nothing extra. It does nothing different. It does nothing more. And it doesn't really do anything better than the cars 20 years ago did. It might be slightly safer, but I doubt it. I doubt that a truck made today is safer than a truck that was made 20 years ago. I have a truck that's 20 years old. It's probably just as safe as modern trucks. It's probably cheaper to maintain, cheaper to fix, cheaper to operate. I still get probably the same gas mileage as the new truck. Same amount of power, if not more. It holds the same amount of people, same amount of cargo, right? But it new was like $20,000. Now it's $100,000. Like, you're not getting more. That's the thing. It's like, oh, I have this hybrid truck and blah blah blah. It's like, you're not getting more car. You know, cars have gotten better in a bunch of little tiny ways that don't amount to the experience of driving being better. Like, you're not doing more with your car than you were 30, 40, even 50 years ago. You're not driving faster in your car. You're not going further in your car. You might be a little bit safer. So that is an improvement, right? So you might be safer, airbags, backup cameras. Those things are improvements. I don't want to say there's like no improvements in cars at all. But they're not faster. You're not getting there any faster, right? Even if you could get like a McLaren, where are you going to drive it? There's a McLaren dealership kind of by my house. People buy really expensive supercars, and then what do they do with them? They drive them 65 on the freeway. They drive them 75 on the freeway and then get a ticket, right? So it's like, what's the point? Like, what's the point of, you know, the better cars? Like, cars now that are just standard cars are the equivalent of luxury cars in the 80s. So you're paying more and you're getting more in a sense, but you're not getting more function. And it's really hard to find just the function now. What people are doing now, instead of buying new trucks, is they're buying old trucks and putting new engines in them. So you buy an old truck and you get a Mako paint job on it. I actually need to get my paint. I need to like repaint my car because the clear coat's like toast on it. But the engine's still good, you know. And then you put a new engine in it. You put a new Cummins engine in it, and then you make it a work truck. And that's how you get a good truck without spending $100,000. That's the only way to buy less features. You have to buy an older car that probably still has the same features, and then, you know, change it, fix it, right? And all those features break down over time. I mean, I'm dealing it with my truck now that's 20 years old. It's like, I've had both windows in the back fail. I've had 2 or 3 different door locks and door handles fail, like little plastic parts that break down. I have one door that won't open, so I have to go in and take apart the panel to open the door because something in it broke, right? And I haven't gotten around to doing that yet, but I've done that kind of thing before. I have to take the panels apart, change out the window mount, change out the window motor, change out the door lock motor. All of these things break down over time. Whereas if you bought like a 1990 Chevy Cheyenne or whatever, and it had the turn roll windows, those would still work exactly like when you bought it. If you didn't have the electronic climate control, that would still work exactly like when you bought it, even with an air conditioner, right? Like nothing on it would be broken at this point. So that's a weird thing to think about, but it's true. It's like you're paying a lot more and you're not getting less. You're getting more, but you're not getting more function, right? The function of the car hasn't changed in decades and decades. Getting boomers to understand inflation is a chore. Getting them to understand anything, Yeah, the prices have gone up prohibitively even when you factor in inflation. And the truth is, like, inflation is almost never calculated correctly because the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, does not track the same items over time. So it's basically it's not a really good measure of inflation. Monetarists will be able to measure how much extra money is coming into the economy. But it's hard to know how that affects prices because that money can be going to lots of different places. It could be making new parts of the economy, or it cannot. And it can just be causing there to be more dollars that you have to use to buy the same amount of stuff. But just as an example, the CPI has this like barrel of goods that it uses, a basket of goods. It'll change what's in the basket based on what it believes, but whoever's running it will believe consumers are doing. So, if the basket of goods contains a steak every week of groceries, they'll take out the steak and they'll put in pork because they're like, well, beef prices went up, so consumers will buy pork instead. It's like first of all, they don't. But more than that, you're just hiding the inflation. They're going to buy cheaper meat. Well, yeah, because inflation is high. They have to buy cheaper crap. It doesn't mean inflation's low because people buy cheaper crap. Nor is the size, quantity, and quality of the items in the basket the same. So I've gone over this before. I'm going to do this little rant about this because I think it's important for anyone that's watching, right? There's shrinkflation and crapflation, which don't show up in the Consumer Price Index. And these are really big. And for consumers, you know what I'm talking about. Shrinkflation. My bag of chips is no longer 16 ounces. It's 15. And then it's 13. And now it's 12 and a half. And now it's 11 and a half. So even though you're buying the same bag of chips, it's now 30% smaller compared to what it used to be. It used to be a pound. Now it's 11 ounces. Then it's 10 and a half ounces. It keeps shrinking. I don't know if you knew this, but ice cream used to be half a gallon. Then it was 1.8 quarts and 1.75 quarts. So they cut 12.5% out of the ice cream. Now it's 1.5 quarts. And I've been seeing it now it's 1.25 quarts. So they've cut almost 50% of the volume of the ice cream to leave the price stable. But there's more. Wait, there's more. If you check the ingredients are not the same. Go buy heavy cream. Flip over the cream and look at the ingredients for heavy cream. There's a high likelihood you will find out that your heavy cream is not heavy cream at all, but it is half and half with thickener in it. So you can't even buy, some people can't even buy heavy whipping cream anymore. You can't buy it. It doesn't exist in a lot of grocery stores. There's no more heavy cream. What you have is, you look it over and you're like, ingredients. Grade A cream, milk Carigian, or grade A cream, milk guar gum. Those thickeners cause diarrhea, by the way. So if you feel like your coffee is making you have to use the bathroom, it could just be the garbage that's in the cream. It could be the gum. Gums cause diarrhea. Anyway, so yeah, you can't get that. You go look at the ice cream. Compare the ingredients. Are they the same? No, they're having to add a bunch of gums in it. They're reducing the quality of the ice cream while trying to maintain the same price. So even though the price of ice cream hasn't gone up and it's in your basket of goods or you're tracking ice cream, it's smaller and worse than it was 5, 10, 15 years ago. Right? I make my own ice cream at home, and for me to even find cream without Carigian or whatever it is, or guar gum, it's really hard. Sometimes Costco has it, but even then, the brand that Costco sold started putting the thickener in it, so it was half and half with thickener, and it makes terrible ice cream. The ice cream comes out, tastes worse. It won't churn correctly. You need real cream to make ice cream if you're going to make it good. And once you've made your ice cream yourself at home, you don't want to go back to the store crap because you realize just how bad it's gotten. So, yeah, the CPI is way off. It doesn't measure shit, okay? If you want to get a real technical measure of inflation, requires you to actually measure M1, M2, all those different levels of money supply, cash plus deposits, which are fluctuating all the time, and that money's going into different sorts of places, buying stocks and all kinds of crap. So it's really hard to know how that's going to affect prices. But people know, they're like, I buy the same groceries. Like for me, if I were single, it'd be really easy to track inflation because my grocery bills would be exactly the same thing every month and they would have doubled. And so like our grocery prices have doubled. We don't buy different stuff. I buy the same stuff I've always bought, and the prices go up. But as a single person, it would have been really easy because when I was single, I literally ate the same 3 meals every single day, day in, day out for years. I had zero diet variety on a weekly basis of this. Yeah. I mean, like I made a boomer video. I got a comment. It's like, I own 2 houses and 12 cars and 6 motorcycles. And it's like, you should try working hard. It's like, I can't tell if that's satire or that's just what baby boomers, that's a real comment, because it's such a typical response, which is like, I worked hard, and the reason you don't have it is because you're not working hard. It's like, actually, like per the numbers, like the younger generations work more hours, produce more economic wealth, and get paid less for it. It's not about working hard. It's about how all those things combine to produce the lifestyle. What people want is they want the lifestyle they grew up with in the 90s and the 2000s even, right? You want a middle-class life. You want the lifestyle the baby boomers had. You want the lifestyle you grew up with. You want to live in a suburb. You want to have a house. You want to have a car. You want to be able to maintain your house and your car. You want to be able to walk to school without getting mugged or raped or something, right? You want that lifestyle. So to have the lifestyle baby boomers have, this is the last thing I'll say before I get back to the book. To have that lifestyle the baby boomers have, it's way more expensive. You have to buy not only do houses just cost more in general, you have to buy a better house than the baby boomers had in order to enjoy the same lifestyle. Because, you might have grown up in a 1,500 square foot house and been in a very safe neighborhood. You cannot buy a 1,500 square foot house in a safe neighborhood in the United States anymore. It doesn't exist. You have to spend more. So not only is the $1,500 house twice as expensive, you have to buy a 2,500 square foot house. I mean, $1,500, 1,500 square foot. You have to buy a 2,500 square foot house, because that's in the better neighborhood where the better schools are, where your kid's not going to get raped and stabbed and robbed every single day, where he can walk to school, right? You have to go over to that other neighborhood and pay even more to have that lifestyle. You want to buy a car, you have to pay 3 times as much for the same functionality. You can't buy a cheap car. You can't buy them. Half of the cheap cars got taken off the road with Obama for cash for clunkers. So because the poor people can't buy cheap cars, they have to buy the next level up, which means you have to buy the next. It's trickle up poverty, right? So you have to make so much more money now to have the same lifestyle as your parents, and you're probably not going to be able to put a lot away in savings. And that's just what I know. Lots of people, lots of millennials, that's just what they accept. They're like, I just don't get to save for retirement. I want my kids to be safe and happy and healthy. I'm going to spend my money on them. And then when I don't have any money, I hope they'll take care of me, or I'll just go into a ditch and die. Right? I'll throw myself into the river and kill myself when I can't work anymore, because there's just no way to save for retirement and provide safety and like prosperity to my children. I'm going to give everything to my children, and when I can't work anymore, I'm just going to kill myself. I've heard people say that, you know, and I understand that sentiment 100%. It's like, yeah, it's, you know, in order to have the money to save for retirement, I'd have to reduce my family's lifestyle and safety. I'm not going to do it. I'll just die. I'll work until my body collapses and I die of a heart attack on the job. That's the plan. The plan is to work until I die. And that's like the standard plan for pretty much anyone that I know who's like under 50. Is like, oh, what are your retirement plans? Retirement plans? I have to work until I die. You know? I don't get to quit at 55. Looks like this is frozen, so I'm going to check it out. Make sure it's actually frozen. Alright, I think it's not frozen. Let's kill it. Alright. Okay. For whatever reason on the Restream platform, the video is frozen, but I just wanted to check it. Make sure it's actually going through. So, anyway. Let's get back to, like, writing some more, huh? That's my spiel on that. It's not just that, like, hamburgers cost more. It's that houses cost more, and you have to buy a better house in order to have that same sort of safe suburban upbringing that you enjoyed if you were a millennial or Gen Y or Gen X even. Gen X got most of their wealth wiped out in the 2008 crisis. That's another thing people won't talk about. It's like Gen X was doing great, and then 2008 happened, and they lost all their money. You know. So it sucks, right? A lot of Gen X are like, I can't retire. I had it all set up to retire at 60. I can't retire till I'm 70 because of the 2008 financial crisis. Completely destroyed my portfolio. Really bad time. Going to get real interesting in October when student loan payments resume. Most of that $2 trillion of debt is held by millennials, and half could default. Yep. You know, there's so many things to say about student debt. I feel like, you know, when I had you on, Brian, I just felt like such a broken record. I feel like a broken record. It's like I say the same things and people don't listen to them. You know, arguments ain't getting in there. They've already assigned some tribal value to student loans to where they can't really think about them outside of it. Some Republicans said student loan forgiveness bad, therefore I'm against it, and it's going to cost me money. Great, okay. I can refute all of those things and make a good moral case about why you need to. But I mean, I think you've probably made the best case, which is that it's just going to be a necessity. It will happen because it is necessary. There's just not a way to get rid of it otherwise. Not a way to deal with it. You know? Get rid of the interest. You know? Yeah, maybe you pay the principal. The interest is the usury part. I don't know. Today's solution to ice cream being too expensive is to make lower quality ice cream. In the 1930s, it was to invent snow cones as a cheaper alternative. They didn't have the pretense of today. That's a great point, right? Like popsicles are a cheaper alternative to ice cream. I like popsicles in my house because they're just a lower calorie thing. You know, they're way less calorie. So like, I don't feel bad about giving my kids a popsicle, whereas like, I don't want to give them huge amounts of ice cream. It's not bad for them as kids. Like, you know, they can burn it off. But a popsicle is like a really easy treat where it's like, I'm not loading them up with sugar. It's like 50 calorie popsicle. It's really easy to burn that off as a kid, you know. People say like, you know, middle ground. Yeah, I mean, I don't worry about middle ground. You worry about what's right and what's feasible. And that's your middle ground. What's right and what's feasible, and do the best. Create the best optimum there that's possible. We wouldn't have a student loan crisis if college degrees were worth what they charged for them. So, you know, this wouldn't be a problem if the degree were causing them to make money. If it was a benefit, then this wouldn't be an issue. We wouldn't even be talking about it. You know? It's like that. What's is there a, you know, how should I put this? Is there like a business loan crisis? Not really, because businesses make money with the loan. Right? But a student loan's like a business loan to somebody on their person that they can never discharge, that nobody ever thinks about. There's no business plan required to get the loan. You don't have to fill out paperwork about, here's what I'm going to do with my degree and the money that you're going to give me. The way a bank would carefully consider whether they're going to give you money. No, it's like, oh, you go to the financial aid department, you fill out this form, and then you get money. Great, give me the money. And they'll tell you, like, you should take out as much money as possible. They'll just tell you to take out the maximum amount. Oh, the chargers are rarely antagonized for the cost. They're the ones who benefit. And this is why I made this video way back in 2016, why the college loan debt crisis is not going away. It's not going away because colleges pay the Democrat Party to make sure it never goes away. Like, most of their money comes from the university system. At least it did in 2016, which is shocking. It's from unions and the university system almost directly, right? From people, from unions that are involved in it. You have financial aid offices that are basically they proctor loans. Those loans are used to buy tuition. The tuition goes up and up and up while you offer no extra education value for it. Zero extra education. In fact, it gets worse. It's worse and worse and worse every year. I remember I taught at the university level, and so I know all this stuff from the inside. It gets worse and worse and worse every year. Tenured faculty retires and then is replaced by multiple adjunct faculty because there's so many people with PhDs, you don't know what to do with them all. So you can hire 2 or 3 adjuncts, which you don't have to pay benefits to, you don't have to pay insurance for them, you don't have to hire them full time, and you can fire them whenever you want to replace that one professor. So you're reducing the cost of instruction. Why is it going up? Well, you're just adding administrators, not just like what we think of as administrators as like deans and stuff like that, but deans, their secretaries, assistant deans. You're multiplying the number of PhD administrators, but you're really multiplying the number of office workers to where you're building entire new office buildings to hold all the office workers that you pay to do more financial aid stuff to get more kids into debt, so they'll pay more for college tuition. Keep in mind, a lot of student loans are used to pay for housing and food and things like that, not just not just the tuition. And the housing has gone up. So if you went to UCLA, not only is the tuition higher, but the housing has gone up by like 10 times. The tuition went up by 6 times. The housing costs went up by 20 times. It's like what it's like. Yeah. Yeah. The students with the debt they rarely do antagonize the colleges. Because the colleges are just indoctrination camps now. They go in and are indoctrinated that they've done a good thing, and then they're upset that they had to pay for it, right? When they should turn around and be like, you defrauded me, and I think you should give me all my money back. You can't give them their time back. That's the crazy thing. You know what I mean? So, I like, if we seized all their endowments and used that to pay down the debt, that would be completely fair. The universities are engaging in a fraudulent business. They're stealing money from people, and they are causing them to engage in usury in order to pay for something that they've been indoctrinated to think that they need to have, only to grow up and find out that it's worthless, right? Anybody who's thinks deeply about it knows that it's worthless. But yeah, young people are also tribal, and they also don't want to be outcast by their peers. So they can't say something like the university system is evil, right? They can only say it's evil in the context of there's too many white people, or there's too many Jews. There's too many Jews in academia. Free Palestine. Things like that. That's all you get to do. So yeah, people are right. It's like, how do we fix the system? Well, first of all, people have been victims of it, so we really have to convince everybody that they're victims. If you start by going, they are victims of a fraudulent scheme, the rest flows from that. They themselves have to be convinced it is you are a victim of fraud, and because you're a victim of fraud, you deserve to be made whole. Not because education should be free. You received a bad education. You paid too much for it. You should not have to pay for that because you were defrauded. That's the framing that we need. It's like they're engaging in fraud, and the loan companies are engaging in usury. It's a giant, sinful, fraudulent business. nobody has the prerequisites they demand for a job, then it's easier to justify importing workers who are cheaper but also lie about the degrees or experience they have. Yep. And there's also the thing about the H-1Bs. I'm against H-1Bs. People are like, oh, we need good immigration. I'm like, H-1Bs just import bad foreign workers and make them indentured servants. It's not good for them. It's very bad for them. And it's bad for American workers. I'm against H-1Bs. Yeah. Yeah, there's millions of job postings. People will apply to them and then not get the thing, and then they go, okay. It's like it's all like part of a bookkeeping trail to justify moving something overseas. It's crazy to think about. How many tech products have poor security because the H-1B visa workers don't actually know how to do the job? Yeah, and then you have a problem with coding too, where you hire a foreigner and they add in code and somehow the product still kind of works. But it's like netcode, you don't dare change it because you don't want the whole thing to come falling down. So it's kind of like, things are kind of like Kowloon walled city in terms of code, and you just don't know how to unravel all the bad, inefficient code. So things run worse, they break down more. It's crazy. I recall seeing something that the average IQ of a bachelor's grad dropped from 115 to 105. Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't, like, a bachelor's in general just doesn't do anything. And I pointed this out, like, on a video, and people are like, what about bachelor's required jobs? They're, like, from the UK. I'm like, those don't exist here, dude. There's no such thing as a job you get with a bachelor's degree in the United States. It doesn't exist. Other than, like, teaching jobs. Do you think musicians who specialize in stock music are going to be hit hard by AI music generation? Possibly. I don't know enough about their business to say for sure, but I bet so. Yeah, I bet so. Why not? Like, they make throwaway music, and AI music is throwaway music. So probably. Just like how I think stock photo people are right now getting obliterated by AI image generation. Why would you pay for a stock photo when you could have the computer draw that better and more to your specifications and needs? I'm not even talking about AI art. I'm like, I can have Midjourney do like a cool graph for like a business article that just looks better and is more precise to what I need than something I'm going to find on a stock photo website that somebody spent half an hour making. It's like, if you were able to just kind of churn out all these stock photo kind of images, there was like a business in that. I still make money from stock photos, but I don't think with, I mean, and then Adobe, if you type it into Adobe stock, they're going to do image generation first. Half of them are AI now, at least half, most of them. If I type in any kind of thing, it's all AI images. Why pay for an AI image from them? Why pay for a stock photo when you can get an AI image that is more precise? Or why not just generate one, right? So it's not even the art. It's not even the art that's getting hit. It's like stock photos of eagles, right? I have stock photos of hawks on Adobe stock, right, that I sell. Because I take nature pictures of bugs and stuff, and those end up on stock photo websites. It's just like one of my side businesses that I've done. It doesn't make a lot of money, but it makes a little money here and there, you know, a couple bucks. Why would you get my picture of a hawk that's real when you could get one of a hawk in flight? You can get a hawk like looking to the left. Like, you can have the computer make the hawk do whatever you want. So no one's gonna buy my hawk picture. Fewer people will, unless they are like, I only want a real photo. It's gonna be weird. I don't know what the future's gonna be with that. Had an Indian tech director who was trying to force through a younger Indian girl for our team's DevOps, but our DevOps guy looked into her and proved she didn't know half of what she claimed. Oh, this is another thing, George. Cheating. Okay, so this is a thing that you have to deal with any worker that you're getting from, like, for example, Asia. They cheat, man. They cheat like crazy. There's a huge cheating culture because so much is tied into what you do on these tests and your degree and all this kind of stuff. They cheat. So if they, just because they have it on their resume that they passed through this class doesn't mean that they know it. They probably cheated. And you find that out when you get to the job and it's like, I thought you knew C++. And they're like, I do. It's like, but you don't. How'd you get this certification? Were you lying? No, they cheated. There's a huge cheating culture in like Korea. I don't know about Japan. I think there's one in Japan, but definitely in China. There's major cheating cultures. Do you have any favorite divination powers in fantasy? Nope. A few years ago, a local big industry, no. I don't even know how to answer that question. It's not even something I would remotely think about ever. So, sorry, Birdie. Nothing, I'm not trying to offend you. I just like, nope, I have no favorite because I've never, ever thought of that ever in my life. A few years ago, the local big industry opened a factory in India and laid off hundreds of workers here. The Indians did the 6-week paid training and then quit en masse to work for 5 cents more down the street. Oh my gosh, yes. I've heard of this. Yeah. I've heard of stuff like that. The lesson the company took away, stop training workers. It's funny how quality of writing has gone down so much that people instantly become suspicious that AI was used because they can't fathom people are capable of being so terrible at writing. I've been experimenting with AI music generators, Udio and Suno. They're both impressive in different ways. Udio sounds much more real, often completely so, but Suno usually has better compositions. Interesting. And you know, that's the thing. Like, if you're just wanting like some background music, like I all this background music that you're hearing now, I performed live. Right? Like here's me performing it live. I'm performing the music live, okay? So it's all live, it's all real. But a lot of people, they want like music for like a video background or something, and it just needs to not be, it needs to be like barely present. It's just filling the negative space. People are uncomfortable with silence, so you need some music to fill up the negative space with scene transitions or whatever you're doing for a video. It's like, is this a big artistic expression? Having like a 4-chord semi-ambient electronic piece? I don't think it is. You know, I don't think it is. So I could see why people would want to do AI music if it's cheaper. And for me, I would look at it and be like, what's the cheapest option? If I'm starting out, at least, right? What is the cheapest option? If AI is the cheapest option, that's probably what I'd be tempted to go with, right? Versus paying even a small amount for stock music. You know, even a tiny amount for stock music. It's like people will choose whatever is cheapest. They're going to grok the image and use that. Had a professor tell me that a lot of his Asian students had the attitude that it was on him to catch them cheating instead of them not cheating to begin with. Yep. Yep, I've heard that as well. Big cheating culture. So at that point you have to, does that certification mean anything? Does the grade is supposed to be a certification of knowledge? Can you trust it? If the answer is no, then we need to just do away with that and find some other way to test people. Hey, I'm going to have you write a program. Like, here's your job application. I need someone who knows C++ and Java. Okay. I need you to write a web applet in Java that does something really simple, and you have 2 hours to do it because that's how long it should take to be able to write that code and make that web applet exist. So then you have the person come in the office and do that. And if they can't do it, you don't hire them, right? I need you to write a program that just tells me the time, that reads the clock and tells the time, right? Or whatever. that looks up this time on this website and then tells me the time. It's not that much code. Do it. You have 30 minutes. And if they can't do it, then they don't actually know Java, right? And you just move on to the next candidate. Employers are always, the reason it's such a pain in the ass to find a job is the same reason employers say they can't find workers, is that it's really hard to employ any filters. Your college degree is not a filter. It doesn't tell anybody anything. It's not a filter anymore. It hasn't been a filter for a long time. You know? India studios are constantly used for 3D modeling, but the quality of the models is so awful that they have to have an internal worker fix the models. Starfield's another example. There you go. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, so yeah, you can get things to like make full-blown compositions out of you humming. Another thing I might end up using is actually Vocaloid, which has been around for a while. That's an AI voice. That's been around for like 20 years. Right, it's computerized voice. The Hatsune Miku games are based off of a Vocaloid developed by Yamaha. It's a virtual voice, a virtual singer, and they made a video game out of it and it became really popular. So I might use that on some compositions at some point. I find it a really fascinating thing because then you could do a lot of extra stuff with it that you can't do with a human voice. You treat it like its own instrument rather than a replacement for the human voice. It's something that's like its own unique thing. Kind of like a keyboard. So rather than trying to duplicate a clarinet, you make the keyboard sound like something unique. Stuff here and there. Remember that Ubisoft had a company in India that tried to work on a Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake. It looked so awful that Ubisoft had to restart from scratch in their Canadian studio. Yeah. It never came out. It was so horrible they decided to restart from scratch. Yeah. It's weird seeing people claim that video game company execs are now greedy and awful, when the truth is the industry has always been plagued by terrible business leaders since inception. That's my understanding. And my memory goes back into the elder days of the 1990s. The only difference is that game devs were competent enough to succeed in spite of the business leaders. The brain drain we see today was decades in the making. Now that the game devs aren't competent enough, the businesses are floundering under the weight of their own incompetent business execs. Yeah, it's the... my dad experienced this with Dole Fresh Fruit, which he was a vice president of in the 1980s and 90s, was that it started getting run by a bunch of people with Harvard MBAs. It's the MBA effect. People go and they get a master's in business, and then they end up in business positions where they run the business into the ground because they don't understand the specifics of the business that they've gone into. They have an MBA, they end up in the farming business, they destroy the farming business. How? Because the farming business is not what you learned in MBA school. It's a different business. It's the same thing. It's like, well, my MBA says you do this. Well, that actually will destroy the industry and the game studio that you're trying to run. Well, I have an MBA. What do you have? I have experience in the game industry, right? The game industry used to be run by devs. You started a studio because you knew how to program and you wanted to make games. Yep, even in the Sega and Nintendo golden days, video companies were run by the same class of managers that ran telecom, pharma, and car companies. Reggie Fils Ime was formerly a Pizza Hut executive prior to becoming the Nintendo of America president. His leadership was so awful that the Nintendo of Europe became the better company. Nintendo of Europe was notorious for being terrible in the 90s, but now Nintendo of America became the worst of the bunch, denying several games from being published in the US. And this was during the time when the Nintendo Wii and Nintendo DS release schedule was bone dry. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what shared world would mean. Like 10 chapters from 10 different authors. I don't know. I think that would be, to me, like shared world seems like something like Star Wars. You know. So something that's not like these characters share a world with some of my other characters, but it's not quite like Star Wars or something like that. Seems like an increasing consensus that mainstream art as we know it is dead. But I can't help but wonder if the death of mainstream art is self-inflicted by the boomers and Gen Xers. It's also a product of them, right? Pop art is a boomer phenomenon. It's boomers who created the most popular art. I wrote an article about this. I'll link it real quick. It's called The Good Boomers. I'll do a video on it too. Okay. So as they get old and retire, that is going away. I have a neighbor, and he went and saw Sammy Hagar last night. Sammy Hagar is 76. There's a whole cohort of baby boomer musicians that are aging out of being able to continue to perform. And when they're gone, there's no one to replace them that it is as popular. In a cultural sense, there's no one who has as big an impact. There's Taylor Swift, right? And Kanye West, but like I couldn't sing you a Taylor Swift song. You know? I could sing you like 20 Sammy Hagar songs. I told my wife, I'm like, oh yeah, there's Sammy Hagar playing. That would have been a fun one to go to. Him and Joe Satriani. And she's like, what does he did? And I was like, why can't this be love? And immediately she knew that. Why can't this be love? Right? With Van Halen. We've got what it takes. So tell me, why can't this be love? Right? She knew it immediately. She didn't know it was Van Halen even, but she knew what the song was. Oh, I love Sammy Hagar. And he's like, he did I Can't Drive 55. He did Heavy Metal. He did, Bad Motor Scooter. He did all these songs, right? Like, oh, yeah, I love Sammy Hagar. My wife doesn't own any Sammy Hagar albums. She doesn't go out of her way to listen to Sammy Hagar. But if we went to that Sammy Hagar concert, she would know most of the songs. I just don't know if there's any artists that's still the case. Maybe Metallica, they're more Gen X, right? But yeah, as Gen X and the baby boomers kind of age out of performing, there's just not, the pop culture phenomenon kind of dies with them. We talk about, why aren't there any more summer blockbusters? It's because there's no, like, the baby boomers are getting too old to make the summer blockbusters, and they're getting too old to care about going to them. They don't have a family. Like, the reason that we had summer blockbusters in the 80s and 90s is baby boomers would take their family to the movies. My generation doesn't take their kids to the movies as much as my parents took me to the movies. That's real. My mom complains about it. We should go to the movies. I'm like, it's expensive. It's really expensive. And a lot of the movies are just not as good. They pulled the ladder up from under them and said, figure it out yourself. Maybe. Yeah, maybe. There might be elements of that for sure. But I actually think that there's just fewer good artists in succeeding generations. This same reason why all the serial killers were baby boomers, all the really creative musicians were baby boomers. There's just fewer people on that level who are able to be creative within tight constraints. And they're not even aware of it sometimes, right? Like, they're playing rock and roll music and like, what can I add to this rock and roll music to make it cool? It's way more limited than what their forebears did with like atonal music and stuff, but it had the potential to be popular. That's the big thing. So there's still great music. There's better music than what the baby boomers themselves made, for sure, out there right now. But it's not popular. It's not like the big thing that everybody knows about. It doesn't have the cultural impact. Twilight Force has put out some amazing albums. No one outside of the power metal subgenre knows who the heck they are. Just don't know, right? They don't have cultural impact. Dragon Force had a slight cultural impact because of Guitar Hero, right? But even then, like, no one really knows. You know what I mean? A collab may carry more weight in self-publishing. I have found it's the opposite, believe it or not. Because the author brand tends to follow the author. You can sometimes get a collection that can sell well if it has a lot of big name authors, and that's how you sell magazines and stuff, but it's often less than the sum of its parts. Like, you're going to have fewer people buy a collection that has me in it, and I have, there's examples to back this up. Few people will buy a collection because I am in it than who would just buy a book from me. So sometimes you can add it together. You know, you get a lot of popular authors together and you can make something out of it. Plus, one of the big attractors to writing to me is that I don't have to collaborate. Honestly. Collaboration is a time sink and often doesn't work out the way you want it to. As I get older, and this is the thing I had to learn as a musician, it's why it was really hard to just have a career in music, is that I was always wanting to collaborate. I wanted to have a band. I wanted the band to work together, but trying to corral people, it's way easier to have employees. Like the Dave Mustaine model of Megadeth, of like, I just hire people to be in the band, is way better. It's just way better than trying to like have a collaborative effort. In terms of business, it's much more practically sustainable. And we could see that. So the benefit of being an author is you can write the book by yourself. You don't have to worry about anyone else, right? I'm not super interested in collaborating with other people for the most part for that reason. If I can't do it all myself, it makes me, I have to really think about whether I want to do it at all. That's just how it is. So I'm going to say this, like cultural impact. There are no techniques that will be lost to time. So that's just something I'm going to say. There are no techniques that Gen X and the Gen Xers and Boomers did that are going to be lost to time. We know how they are. They've recorded how to do them. We have records. We can look at how they're done, right? There's no musical techniques that are going to get lost to time. So that's not going to happen. It's just, are those musical techniques going to show up in popular music? Maybe not. That could also be because the audience is stupid and actually doesn't want them anymore. Right. There's no special music theory. They invented no special music theory, special tape effects. None of that stuff is really going to get lost to time. And as long as the art exists, you can kind of reason backwards towards the theories that make it work. So, yeah. Yeah, their fanatical obsession with pop culture might have opened them up to embracing the death cult. Brian talks about this. The pop cult and the death cult becomes part of the mainstream because pop culture is all they know. You have to just go with what's popular. You do what's popular. You just kind of are excited about what's popular and what's the main zeitgeist. I understand it. You know, part of me longs for those days to think simply again. To just be excited about the Halo 3 launch or whatever. To be excited about a movie coming out. And to be able to go and just enjoy it. To not have a bunch of other things on the mind and the spirit. But it's better for our souls for us to be dispelled of that illusion. You know, it may not be pleasant, like people are not going to want that necessarily, but you know, it's better for us as individuals to not have the pop cult. But we can still kind of wistfully remember. I remember when it was exciting to go to the movies on Friday and meet up with friends and not have anything particular to do. Well, I'm sitting here writing a book with you guys, hanging out with you. And it's great. You know, I love doing that. While I'm doing this, I'm not doing something that I would have done on a lazy Saturday afternoon in the 90s, feeling like time had no meaning and time was always stretching in front of me and there was always time to do more things. That feeling is lost. And instead it's like I have to do things because they matter, you know. It's good that you kind of lose that slothfulness, I think. But yeah, I could totally see your point of like you're obsessed with pop culture, and so wherever pop culture goes, that's where you're going to go. And you're not going to think too much about it. Like, oh, to not have to think. You know, it's like I wrote that piece, Jimmy Turns 35, because of envy that I had. I was envious of people that were capable of being able to work a menial job, just a job that pays the bills. Of course, now you can't really have that and survive. And to be able to go home and just play video games and just enjoy not working. Just like your life is the minimum amount of work and otherwise leisure. I knew so many people like this in the early 2000s that they just, and you could do this, right? Like the economic conditions in the early 2000s were still miles better than they are now. You could work at Pizza Hut. And by working at Pizza Hut, you could have enough money to have an apartment, to have a TV, to buy a console, multiple consoles, to play video games whenever you wanted to, and buy as many as you wanted to. The economic conditions in the early 2000s 100% allowed for that lifestyle. And I knew multiple people who had it. You know, I knew guys that were like, you know, I knew a dude that him and his girlfriend were, like, he was a manager at a restaurant. Like an assistant manager, and she was like a manager at a restaurant. They weren't even servers, right? So they're barely making more than them. They had enough money to buy a house, have a mortgage, and like have and smoke gigantic amounts of marijuana all the time. They just got high, like they went to work, went home, got high, played video games and watched movies. That was their life. Now, for me, who doesn't have sloth inborn as a spiritual vice, like my spiritual weakness is probably not sloth. I have plenty of others, but I don't think sloth is one. It's in there because I envy their ability to just be slothful, to just be like, yeah, we can have this, and I couldn't even afford that. I was working my ass off as a musician, gigging 4 nights a week. It's like, you guys are wealthy, and you're doing worthless work. You're doing nothing. You're basically just existing, and you have all this stuff. Whereas I'm working my ass off and I have nothing. That's a downer. And I don't resent them for that, but they figured out, like, you can do this amount of work and get this amount of money and buy this amount of house and have this amount of stuff and just have that life, And if they rented out, like, their extra bedroom to a friend of mine, that's how I knew them, as I was close with that friend. They rented out extra bedrooms to other people, and that, like, made up their mortgage. And that's how they lived. And so it's kind of, for me, it was a little bit envious. It's like, I'm envious of that ability to be satisfied with that. Because I'm not. I'm not satisfied by such a life. And I can't be. And so Jimmy turns 35, is like, here's this guy who's basically satisfied with that. And then he gets to a point in his life where those things, those little pop cult things, stopped being good. So what do you do? Where's the meaning in your life when it's like these video games aren't, like, he buys a PlayStation 5. That was the setup, I think. He like buys a PlayStation 5 and no one gives a shit about it. There's no good games for it. It's not exciting. He's wanting it to be exciting like when his dad bought him a PlayStation 2 for Christmas. But it's not there. Right? It'll never come back. It's never going to be that kind of joy again. And so when he wakes up from that pop cult feeling, it's like, what do I do? What's the next thing? Because I can't just keep doing this. It's just not fun. Like, it's not fun anymore. So what do I do? So in the early 2000s, I can look at it as like, and I experienced it because, like, I was able to, even though I didn't do as well as other people that were just pizza delivery boys, I made enough money to, like, live on my own with roommates, right? To be able to play video games, play World of Warcraft, drink beer if I wanted to. It was great. The early 2000s were amazing in that sense. It's like the last gasp with the pop cult, especially with gaming. So I'm envious of the people that were satisfied with that, but I always had more artistic plans and more artistic aspirations than just doing the bare minimum. But I wonder how those people do. Like, I wonder what does your life look like in 2024 where the media is not as good, the games aren't as fun anymore, right? Everything's more expensive. Maybe they lost their house when the economic downturn. I think they got in trouble for, like, embezzling at one of them got in trouble for, like, embezzling at the restaurant. Maybe their life fell apart. I had a friend who owned a house at one point, and his life fell apart when he lost his job. It all crumbled to dust. That sucks. Brian Niemeyer says, you could tell it's a cult because they accuse anyone who won't pay to be insulted of hating fun. Yeah. So if you're not paying them money to be insulted, then you hate fun. No. I don't need to pay. Yeah, I don't need to pay someone who hates me when there's all of these things that came before. I can read books that were written a long time ago or are new and aren't written by people who hate me. I could play old video games, or I could play new indie games made by people who don't hate me. Right? I don't have to pay them. I'm not losing fun by not paying them. There's lots of other fun to be had. You can go outside and explore the forest for free, and that's fun. You know what I mean? Life has that excitingness still, just have to find it elsewhere. And I said this about like the GoldenEye effect. Like, GoldenEye was fun in the 90s, but was it fun because GoldenEye was a great game? I don't think it was a great game. Maybe I'm in the minority there, but I think it was fun because you had fun playing with your friends. Same reason Smash Bros was great, right? Playing Smash Bros by yourself is not as fun as playing it with 4 other people or 3 other people. Yeah. So you could do anything with other people. You can go shooting. You can go shooting. Go hiking. Explore the forest. You know, play tabletop D&D or something. There's lots of things to do with other people. We're starting to run out of time. It's 5 o'clock, but we passed the 50,000 word mark. I'm going to finish up this little scene here. What are we at? About 3,000 words. So we'll finish up. We'll get outside of the tunnel, and then we'll call it after that little rant. Yeah. The audacity of people demanding the inclusion of death cult ideology into media and then telling everyone that has a problem with it, that it's just a game, man. What's the big deal? It's like, cool, I'll just not play it. And then they blame you for not playing it. I can't believe these evil racists won't play this game. Right? That's the very standard narrative. They've been doing it for like at least 9 or 10 years at this point. It's like, this failed because straight white men won't watch this. Yeah, come on. I don't have to watch something that is insulting to me. And it's basic marketing, right? Is like, you don't tell men they're like, if I make a book that's targeted towards women, I wouldn't get upset that men don't want to read it. Vice versa. If you make a book targeted towards men Would you get upset that women don't read it? No, but that's where we're at with the book industry. Men don't read. Well, you're not writing books that they want to read. That's a marketing problem. That's not a men problem. But that's where it is. It's like men or bad white people won't buy this thing that is about how bad they are. Aren't they extra bad for not buying the thing about how bad they are? It's like being angry that women aren't buying straight razors or something. Why aren't women buying straight razors? Because they don't use them or need them? Only men need those? I can't believe women are so bad for not buying straight razors. Why aren't men buying tampons? Because they don't need them? They have no use for that product? Yet somehow it's wildly different when we think about marketing a media product. Everyone should like it. Everyone should buy it. And if you don't buy it, you're a bigot. You're not buying it because you're a bigot, right? That's what they always come down to. Is like there's some deep original sin you have that's stopping you from buying the media, the ideological media that they promote. It's ridiculous and silly when you think about it. No one who wants to make money selling books thinks like this. You write romance books for people who like romance. And you don't get upset that people who don't like romance don't buy romance books. That would be ridiculous. Go make your own X was always a lie. The cult craves a captive audience. Yes. And then if you use nothing, then that's also a problem. I can't believe you do, and I still get it from baby boomers. Like, what do you mean you don't watch TV? I'm like, I don't watch any TV. I don't watch TV shows. I occasionally watch a movie. Or I will very occasionally watch an anime if I feel like I can review it or there's something I'm going to get out of it, like an anime series. I don't watch TV shows. Have you seen Game of Thrones? Nope. And I don't care to ever see it. I don't care. I don't watch TV. Did you watch the news? Nope, don't watch news. I watch none of it. But what do you watch? I watch nothing. I read books. I watch nothing. I do occasionally watch movies and stuff, but the idea that you would just not consume the media that they consume is like baffling. It'd be like, have you ever met a person who doesn't listen to anything in the car? I have, and it's like, you don't listen to anything in the car? It's like, no, I just like to think about stuff when I drive and look at things. It's like, okay, that's a valid choice. And I've listened to silence in the car many times when it's like, my phone's not working or something, or the CD player's not working. I don't want to listen to what CDs I have. I'll just listen to silence. Why don't you turn on the radio? There's nothing on the radio I want to hear. Not one thing on the radio I want to hear. There's not a single thing on broadcast radio that I give a shit about hearing. Nothing. Rather hear silence. Yeah, go fire subscribe. Yes, thank you. Sorry. That's my rant. It's like, yeah, I listen to nothing. Will our protagonist be stumbling upon some ancient Morainian high tech here soon? Not really. This is the end of the Jack Bennett's part. We're gonna come across some other interesting things at the end of this. I kind of want to leave on a cliffhanger. Cliffhanger. All right. All right. And that's enough for another chapter for this week, I think. Good old transitionary chapter. The journey through the dark. Yep, that's good. Okay, that's it for this week. Thanks for hanging out with me. Stimulating conversation. I have a fun couple things planned for this next part of the book. We'll get to those next time. So, have a great one, and I'll see you all next time. Let me link everything again. I'll just link the Substack article that I wrote. We'll get Patreon here. All this stuff is on for paid members of Patreon and Substack. And then if you want the music channel, it's here. So I appreciate everybody coming and joining me and hanging out for a bit. We're going to get this book done. We're past 50,000 words. We have a couple more events, and then we'll wrap the whole thing up. It'll be a good little fantasy book. So Have a great one, and I will see you all next time.